All right, and we're live again. My name is Joakim. I'm very happy to be here. You can see my topic on the screen, human connection and collaboration. That's what I'm going to talk about today. And let's start to set the stage a bit. I'm quite sure that this is basically what all of us are after. We want to become better at what we do. We want to learn, become smarter, and we want to be able to move faster with more agility. So that's basically what we're looking at here. And the question is, what do we need to do to succeed in this ambition? And one thing I think all of us have realized already is that doing the same as usual, the here and now, that's basically not a problem. That's kind of easy. We can do that. But when it comes to innovation, creativity, new ways of thinking, new ways of acting, thinking long term and changing for the good, that's truly the leadership challenge in the new era, in the new world. And you might ask yourself, why is this more of a problem now in the new world? Well, because this is what our job as leaders is all about, moving together towards our desired future. If you add these three, connection, energy, and direction, what you get is collective improvement velocity. And today, during these special times and in the new future, it becomes obvious how we tend to over-focus on direction and underestimate the importance of connection and energy. And what becomes even more important now to focus on is to help people speaking or stepping up. And that's not about doing our job according to our job description or as your role requires you to do. It's about stepping out of that box to voice a potential, to admit a mistake, or try something new. It's about thinking or stepping outside the box. In other words, it's about creating room for improvement and positive change. And getting people to speak up is key to tapping into our collective creativity and capacity to innovate together. It's key to find new and better ways to move forward. It is key in creating a desired future state that everyone can commit to. And even under what we would call normal circumstances, getting people to speak up and voice improvement, voicing new ideas, asking uncomfortable questions, etc., is hard. Why is that? Why is it so hard? Well, because it is generally a bad idea to do so. Just take a look at this table here. Who gains really from you speaking up? Think about it. When you speak up, it's actually the organization that gains. And when will you see the gain, the benefit from you speaking up? Well, it's going to be delayed. And most of the time, it's uncertain. You can't be sure of it. But who gains from you keeping your mouth shut? Well, you do yourself. And when do you gain? Immediately. And it's almost a near certainty. So when you look at this, you can say that it's not surprising that speaking or stepping up is rare. What is surprising or strange is that it occurs at all. So this is what we need to focus on much, much more than we normally do. Because let's face it, nobody ever wakes up in the morning and thinks, Well, today I'm going to try to be a bit more ignorant, a bit more incompetent, a bit more intrusive, or a bit more negative. But sadly, that is normally the strategy to survive in an unsafe environment. You don't ask questions. You don't admit weakness or mistakes. You don't offer ideas. You don't critique the status quo. And why is this, having people speaking up, stepping forward, more important and even harder now? Well, one reason is in the old normal, togetherness and connection happened automatically. We didn't focus enough on it then either, I would say. But at least we could chit-chat a bit by the coffee machine. We could ask a question in the corridor. We could take 5 minutes to resolve a misunderstanding with a colleague in the office elevator as we left for the day. We had lots of opportunities like that. But when we don't have that, it creates insecurity. It creates loneliness and it creates fear. And now, as we meet like this, we can't interpret people's reactions as easily as we could before. And since we can't resolve misunderstandings as easily, and since we feel more lonely and vulnerable, we tend to hold back even more. So someone taking a risk to step forward, to take leadership or voice a concern or a new idea is even more likely now, actually. And to all of us, as we know, impression management is second nature. So this is what we need to focus on more now than ever to establish psychological safety. And this is the underpinning for success and high performances in the new normal, in the new world. And if you get this right, you will need less courage. And the courage you need will be fueled by the atmosphere. So the atmosphere is more important than the individual's courage and strength to step forward and speak up. And to be honest, let's face it, the goals, the plans, the direction, it's pretty clear already. First, a short definition of psychological safety. It is the belief that the context is safe for interpersonal risk-taking, speaking up with ideas, questions, concerns, or mistakes, and they will be welcomed and valued by your team members. You can think of it as a felt permission for candor. The importance of psychological safety, it's not new. We've known it from intuition, from experience. We know how important it is. And in a big survey within Google, they looked at all their different teams and tried to distinguish what makes a high-performing team. What is it really that makes a high-performing team? And they tried to look at tons of variables. This is the strength of a big company. They had lots of data to analyze. They could look at all the variables, and they basically found nothing that distinguished the high-performing teams where the people felt good, they were energized, they worked well together, and they achieved astonishing results from the teams that were just normal. But eventually they stumbled upon this concept of psychological safety, and they could integrate that in their analysis. And what they found was that that was the underpinning for a high-performing team, that they had this felt feeling of permission to be candid with each other. They knew that whatever they said, whatever they did, they would still be a valued part of the team. And one question that might rise here when we talk about psychological safety, it often does, this question. Well, is psychological safety the opposite of having high standard? Is it a matter of finding the right point of balance between this, the psychological safety and the high standards? Do we need to sacrifice our high standards? And actually, it's the complete opposite. There is no trade-off between high standards and psychological safety. On the contrary, they need to work together. Because if you think of different situations, in situations where the psychological safety is low and our expectations on performances is also low, you don't feel good there. You feel insecure, and you normally end up in the apathy zone. At the same time, if you only have psychological safety, but you have no high expectations or high standards, then you're only in the comfort zone all the time. That can be nice. I mean, just hanging around, being with each other, feeling comfortable, having a cozy time. Yeah, it's comfort, but you don't grow there. You don't learn there. You just hang out. Also, looking at having high standards but no psychological safety, then you really become anxious. Then you basically feel fear all the time. Fear of being left out of the group, fear of getting blamed, all that fear. But when you combine these, when you have the psychological safety and you have the high standards, that's where you're in the learning zone. That's when you become faster. That's when you become better. That's when you become smarter. So, facing uncertainty and interdependence as we are today, the high performance zone is really where we have the psychological safety and the high standards. And the question that arises is, of course, these two. What strategies do you have to establish a psychological safe environment? And what strategies do you have to motivate high performances? These should be your two main focus areas as leaders. And I would say it's most often the psychological safety aspect that we forget. And it's more important now than ever. So I'm going to focus on that one now as we move forward. So what can leaders do to create psychological safety? Well, first of all, you need to frame the challenge. You need to reframe the situation. As an example, let's say we have a dissatisfied customer. How will that occur to your team members? Well, I would say the normal reaction to that would be fear. Fear of getting blamed, fear of being punished. So the first step is always to reframe that situation. Talk about it and frame it as a learning opportunity. We need to decide together that a dissatisfied customer is for us a learning opportunity, and speaking about it, discussing different ways to handle a situation like that will help us learn, will help us improve for the future. And this might seem obvious. Of course, we should look at it like that. But if we don't speak about it, if we don't acknowledge how a situation like that occurs spontaneously to most of us, then we will never be able to address it as the learning opportunity that it is. The second step, of course, is to invite engagement. Ask questions. Have it as one of your topics. To talk about dissatisfied customers in this case. Share examples of situations that has happened, what you learned from them, how you handled it, how you made the situation better, or how you didn't, because you were just overwhelmed by it. And share that too, to learn how to handle it better. And maybe most importantly, as a leader, you need to respond appreciatively. Acknowledge both the content and the way it's delivered, the courage it takes, the information it brings, the learning opportunity that it creates. So this is a 3-step process towards increased psychological safety in your team. And you have lots of situations, I'm sure, that you need to reframe to be able to create this. Another aspect of psychological safety that is really important is what it is established by. And there are 2 fundamental blocks of psychological safety. The first one that we as leaders, as people eager to make a change, often forget is equally distributed speaking time. Most of us speak too much at this moment. I speak much more than you do, which is basically a flaw. We need to establish situations and ways of approaching each other where we speak equally much. We have the same amount of airtime. That's the only way that we can integrate all perspectives and utilize the benefits that are laid on the table when all of us share our own perspectives. And the second part that is constituting the psychological safety is active listening. Really thinking about the way you listen when people speak. Are you listening to take it in, to be able to appreciate them for the contribution, or are you just waiting to make your comment, to launch your brilliant idea? And if we want to make this happen and foster a culture where we continuously enforces the psychological safety and the high performances within our organizations, we need to change the way we are with each other. And you could say that this is the single line of code of high performing teams in the new world. This is very easy. We're actually going to try it out soon. What it says here is that when we meet, whether it's in real life or in the virtual space, we always start with a smile to show each other appreciation. The second step is to ask a question. The important questions. For example, what bad customer experience have you had lately that we could learn from? Then you listen actively to really take it in. Then you respond with appreciation, positive feedback, to enforce that behavior, to acknowledge both what is said and how it was said and the courage it took. And of course, as you receive positive feedback, you show appreciation for that too. And when we finish our meetings virtually or in real life, we end with a smile. This simple format, this way of being with each other makes a ton of difference for the environment, for our willingness to contribute, and for our performances. And what I'd like to do now is to try this out with you by using the speed networking function on this platform. So what we will do is try this format out. And to be able to do it, it's really important that we stick to this format now. So this will be an exercise and an experiment. I will, in the chat, post some instructions now. So this is going to be a connect in a one-to-one. You have the format there as well. It's going to start with, I think the structure is a bit messy here, but the first step is that both persons, as you meet, both A and B, you smile and say hello. The second step is, after you have decided who goes first, is that you answer a question. You do that during approximately 80 seconds. I'm not going to time you. It's going to be up to you. You answer a question during 80 seconds. When A is done, B will give positive feedback during approximately half the time, 40 seconds. When you have received the positive feedback, you show appreciation for it during about 5 seconds. Just say thank you or whatever you like to do. Then B answers the same question during 80 seconds. When that is done, the other person gives positive feedback during half the time, 40 seconds. And apparently I couldn't get all of it in there. You show appreciation, of course, for the feedback. And then you're done. You say thank you to each other, say goodbye, and smile. And we will set the timer for the one-on-ones to 5 minutes. And that's basically what it's going to take if you stick to this format. And the question now is, which are your most important strengths as a human being? Put words to them, describe them, share them during 80 seconds, and then enjoy the positive feedback you receive, both on what you say and how you say it. So let's try this out now. I'm going to need your help, Simeon, to pause this session. As we do that, in the lobby, you can select to enter the speed networking. Do that. You will meet a person there. You don't know who it's going to be, but I assure you it's going to be a beautiful person. So start with a smile and enjoy this 5-minute exercise. I'm going to post a few instructions more in the chat as we do this. And afterwards, when you're done, after the 5 minutes, I'm going to ask you to sit down at the table in the lobby for 5 minutes with 3 or 2 other people to reflect on the exercise and share how it was for you. I'm going to send that in also when you're done in the chat. So now, Simeon, please pause and let the people move into the one-to-ones. Met lots of times before. Still, this always brings a new dimension, and it always makes me happy to hear people talk about their abilities and strengths. And what I realized from it today is that creates an opportunity for me as a colleague, leader, or friend to bring those strengths forward even more by the way I am. So I had a really good time. Then some nice reflection with Devyani, Chris, and Kathy as well. So before we end this, time is basically up. But if we have anybody that like to share a reflection, I really got some good ones in my reflection group. So if you want to come on stage and just share your reflection from the exercise, I would truly appreciate that. And what you need to do is to raise your hand, and then Simeon will bring you on stage where you can share. So if you'd like to do that very briefly in a few words, I would appreciate it. So let's see if anybody raises their hand to say something about this. We have Chris here joining me on stage. I really appreciate that, Chris. Could you please share your reflection?
Thank you, Joakim, for taking us through this morning and for inviting me here on the virtual stage. I mean, I think within our team, it was great I would say that guys around the table actually shared a lot of similarities around bringing a lot of energy and a lot of enthusiasm to the table, to the party, and being honest and open in their ideas. And I think we reflected on, I guess, many of us in business, no matter different cultures, different levels, different organizations, we still get frustrated by not seeing those behaviors or traits to create that psychological safety zone where people can be honest and open. Still in organizations today, I get frustrated, very, very senior people who are just far too direct, to the point, really not open to other ideas. And I think that was something that resonated with our team. But Joakim, really, kudos to you today for connecting the dots together between the psychologically safety zone and the high performing teams, because I think it makes a lot of sense and really resonates with me today. So I think it's been a 45 minutes very well spent. So appreciate your time today.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate it very much. Beautiful reflection. I really like that. And as you said, this is really something we need to work on continuously. It's about breaking old habits and creating new ones. And this simple format, as Kathy also reflected in our group, it's very simple to stay with, but you really need to do it systematically, as we did today. And for all of you listening, I just want to share that if you send me an email, you have my email address there on the screen, or if you connect with me on LinkedIn, I would be happy to lead you through a session, a 45-minute session, where we apply this format in a 3-step process where we start with you as individuals. We move from the I to the we of the team, purpose as a team, and we end with moving into the future, commitments, moving into that future, where we apply this format throughout the whole process. So if you're interested in that, I'd be happy to do it with your team to start establishing these habits and psychological safety in your team. So I would be happy to do that as a freebie for you who are taking part today. So that was all for today. Sorry, we're a couple of minutes past my time. I enjoyed this. I truly did. And I hope to see you all soon, maybe in a session with you and your team. Thank you. That's all for me.
Hey, thank you, Joakim, and absolutely. I also enjoyed the session from the master as well. It was just speed dating, and what are the chances that I would end up with you? But that's what happened. As usual, your sessions are very, very enlightening. There is always a different perspective, and I was telling my team here that you bring in a very different perspective. And one of the team members also mentioned that your Zen appearance is and your approach is. I guess I'm again back in giving positive feedback, right? So it makes a difference, and especially the kind of topic that you're talking about is. Where you want to bring in that, sort of want to create that sort of constructive environment where people can be open, honest, and transparent with each other is extremely important. So thank you for doing that and sharing that with us, all of us, and I'm sure some of you will in the audience would like to connect with you. So you've already given your details that they will. We will be posting this video later on YouTube, and so that others can benefit from what you just shared. I think that was gold. So with that, I would like to clap.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much. I really appreciate your positive feedback, and thank you for having me here and for arranging this great event. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and now we move to the next speaker. Again, somebody that I've known for a number of years, a great facilitator, a great orator, but also a person who's got multicultural experience, comes from a different part of the world, lives in a different part of the world, and has worked in other parts of the world. A traveler who has traveled to a huge number of countries. I'll let that introduction be done by him. But I would like to welcome upon John Himelian, who is the Director Southeast Asia Lean Global Network, and he's currently based in Singapore. And he's going to talk about essential mind skills for the digital age.